Hi, I'm August Keller, and this is my review of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. So, this movie is less with more. Its story is very disjointed and overstuffed, and it kind of fails to develop anything specific. It has family drama, supernatural elements, romance, a pointless revenge subplot, and excessive characters. And they're all just cramped into these broad strokes. I think there was a good opportunity for some heart here with the mother-daughter dynamic between Ortega and Ryder. But the script just doesn't focus on that enough. I mean, that is the focus, but there's just too much else going on for that to really be fleshed out. And this really kind of bleeds into the acting, which, is talented and committed for sure. And Keaton, he really reprises his role well, but it's all just very stifled. There's like one or two moments of vulnerability, and it's well done, but it just doesn't feel earned. So it just doesn't really land. It all feels kind of distant. And besides those few moments, everyone is kind of just one note. They're hitting their note well, but they're really stuck because the script doesn't give them much range to play with. Meanwhile, the turning points of the script, they often feel forced. Tension and triumph, those things don't really feel achieved. So when it does come, it feels kind of unsatisfying. Where the moments where it should feel like a triumphant moment or where it should feel tense, it just kind of feels like a flat line. Motivations are often very idle. Like the characters will say their motivations, that we know the motivation, but they're just kind of there. And they don't actually start inciting action until the second half of the movie. Then it starts feeling like, oh, now we have motivation. Now the movie's finally gets going in the second half, but even then it's kind of sputtering. And, as a viewer, that's not very fun to wait for the first half of the movie to finally get some bits and pieces in the second half. The humor is kind of middling, I would say. It's not bad. It's okay, but I wasn't ever really impressed, to be honest. I think some of the actors, like O'Hara, I find her very funny and she elevates her material. But other than that, I don't think the humor really did much for me. I think the rules are very unclear, like the supernatural rules. So, they don't need to make the most sense to me, but they need to feel kind of consistent. And I think that kind of adds to the lack of triumph or tension. It's kind of hard to follow what's even going on, really, because they're just kind of, the exposition is just kind of like getting thrown at you, and it's just like too fast and too superficial to really, for me as a viewer to really like even feel like making sense of it. And the ending I found very unsatisfying. It's just kind of like, what was that even supposed to be? Like, what's the point of that? And it really kind of directly impedes a feeling of resolution and conclusion to this movie. It's very unsatisfying. So anyways, all this is to say that Beetlejuice feels kind of like a hodgepodge of like undercooked tack-ons, like all these ideas that didn't make the cut of the first movie that are maybe just kind of been accumulated over the last 30 years waiting for the sequel. And they just didn't really pick a lane, and they just kind of threw a handful of ideas out there, and none of them are really very good. So they just said, why just try all of them? And it's quantity over quality as far as storytelling goes. And that's not a great route to go. Technically, I think Beetlejuice is very manic. It has style, but that style is a little aimless and kind of unrestrained. It's very kind of overdone at times. Burton, I appreciate his style in general, and I appreciate that it seems like he's trying to go back to his roots with this movie a little bit, but he just he needed someone to like tell him where to draw the line and what is the purpose behind all this. So the cinematography is very flashy, as you might expect. There's a lot of gaudy lighting and extreme angles, but I found the lighting to be kind of overdone, like and kind of like almost like too much. Like the colors are just there's just washes of colorful lighting, and it just kind of gets excessive and kind of like almost like sickening a little bit. I mean, I don't know if I'm sounding extreme, but like at least like desensitizing. The editing really lurches with its momentum, where, like I said, the first half is just kind of idle, and then it just has these like manic bursts of energy that are just like kind of too much, and it feels very uneven. And again, the editing also omits resolution. The structure of this, like the structure is fine up until the end, where it's like just completely drops the ball, in my opinion. The sound design has all the genre elements you would expect, like fantasy and horror. There are some good smash cuts and a few stings. The music, I found a little unrestrained. That's another example of it kind of going overboard, where, you know, there's the famous themes, the Elfman scoring. There's some suitable needle drops that I feel like fit the 80s kind of throwback, and there's some playful diegetics where it's like trans-diegetic, or there's like a cappella singing, or characters singing along with the scoring, and that's all fun. But sometimes it's just kind of too much. Like the singing goes on too long, or the music's a little too in your face, or just kind of like there's a needle drop, but it's almost like the scene is there for the needle drop rather than the needle drop being there for the scene. The production design, I found a little too committed to the iconography. I mean, of course, Beetlejuice needs to have his costume, but does Winona Ryder have to look like she did 35 years ago? Like, why does she have the same haircut still? Like, do we really need her to have that same haircut for me to remember that she's Winona Ryder? Or can her character have grown a little bit? But there is the iconography, which I appreciate, and there's trippy world building, like, you know, the underworld, afterlife world. But again, I think the colors are desensitizing. The longer we stay in the afterworld or afterlife world, the more I kind of quickly get over it, because it just feels like the same three colors for a very long time, and it oddly kind of becomes a little drab, even though it's so saturated. The cast is very good. I like how they mixed returners with newcomers, you know, having Keaton and Ryder there, and O'Hara there, and having Ortega there to kind of be some fresh life. That's great. I don't know if any of them are like stars, like A-listers, but they're all well-known people, and they all fit their roles well. Ortega and Burton go well together, and of course all the returners fit. The effects are abundant. I like how tangible they are. There are some digital effects that work most of the time, sometimes not so much, but mostly it's tangible, which I appreciate. And I think they also establish or reinforce a strong aesthetic that this movie is going for. So the effects I liked a lot. But, you know, ultimately I do feel like Beetlejuice just kind of lacks intentionality. It has a lot of ideas, I think too many ideas, and it has a lot of style, but it just doesn't really know where to aim it. And, you know, all that style isn't really reinforcing any substance. I just don't feel like this movie fulfills its potential. There are a few key mistakes that I really struggled to get past, but there's a lot of merit to it too. So overall, I think it's a fine movie, but I do feel like it's a missed opportunity. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. If you like what I'm doing here, please feel free to like and subscribe. I also have an Instagram linked in the description, but at the very least, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye.